All of us who have had strokes, we're all different, and our strokes are different, but we're all in recovery. One of the most important things I've found to help me stay active is yoga. I know you're sitting there watching this video and saying to yourself, what are you talking about? I had a stroke. I can't do yoga. I can't even hardly walk right, and my balance is terrible. Well, my stroke was just over 2 years ago. I've learned a lot about stroke, a lot about myself, and a lot about yoga. So let me tell you a little bit about how it's helping me. Now please note, I am not a yoga instructor. I am just a stroke survivor. One of the main things that I've learned about yoga is that it is not about achieving a perfect body. It's about helping you become the best that you can be in your stroke recovery. There are different kinds of yoga. Did you know that? Well, I didn't. I just always thought that yoga was the aerobic, energetic, sport-minded kind of activity. But the two that I've found to be the most helpful are restorative and yin. As I continue talking, I'm going to show some pictures and some video of myself that will hopefully demonstrate what I'm talking about. Before my stroke, I never had time for yoga, and I always thought it was for those physically fit people who are trying to get into physical fitness. Well, it's taken a while, but I've learned that these two types of yoga involve a combination of poses and styles designed for us, stroke survivors. They include breathing exercises, stretching, and relaxation techniques. It's more about fostering our mind and body connection, and that's exactly how we recover from our stroke, by helping our brains rewire all those connections that have been disrupted in our mind and in our body. When you've had a stroke, your mind and body connections aren't working right, like mine. Well, yoga can help with that because of the intense focus and attention it requires for you to establish. Notice that I didn't say because of the cool poses and physical strength it demands. It really helps with our brains trying to rewire themselves. Each movement is very deliberate, and that's what our brains need to start working again, to realize the connections that are needed. What? Did you think all this healing was going to happen just by itself while we sit around feeling sorry for ourselves? No, we have to stay active. With yin yoga, our brains get an extra push that is telling those regrowing neural pathways where they need to go. Now it's true, when we started rehab, our physical and occupational therapy got us started in the right direction. But like I've said so many times, sooner or later that our formal therapy will end and we're on our own. What can we do then? Yoga. Yoga also helps with balance, range of motion, strength, and endurance. Remember your therapist always talking about that stuff? As you're rehabbing, do you walk funny now like I do? I went from a wheelchair to a cane, and finally I can walk on my own. Now just because one person can do some things well, doesn't mean that everyone will do well. That's another advantage of yoga. There's not just one specific way of doing it. It can be modified to everyone's stage of recovery. Sometimes we can start in a chair, sitting, or on the floor, and props can be used to help support us. One thing I've noticed as my recovery progressed was that as I would try to do things that required a great deal of effort, I found myself either holding my breath or running out of air. One of the main benefits of yoga is that it places a major emphasis on breathing while exercising. Now remember I mentioned restorative yoga? Well, it's not your typical yoga, and there aren't as many studios that even offer it. So don't just sign up for a yoga class and figure that's it. If you do, you may find yourself in a room with active people doing all sorts of typical yoga poses, the kind you've seen advertised. So what is restorative and yin yoga? Well, they're very similar, but both of them focus more on stretching than on movement. It is a practice that is all about slowing down and opening our bodies through passive stretching and allowing those neural pathways to expand and develop. In a typical class, you may hardly move at all, doing just a few postures over the course of an hour. It is a completely different experience than most yoga practices. During the restorative yoga, your muscles are allowed to relax deeply. It's a unique feeling because props, rather than your muscles, are used to support your body. Restorative classes are very mellow, and that makes them perfect for those of us who are recovering from a stroke. So here's my suggestion to you. Of course, stay active. Hop online and look for a yoga studio and therapists in your area. Then give them a call to see if they have restorative or yin classes available. If they don't know what you're talking about, then they're probably more into the aerobic style of yoga. And keep looking until you find someone who really understands the difference. You'll be glad you did.